9. This Wednesday, the 25th of September 2024. Commitments and promises. President expresses the country's continuous commitment towards the debt restructuring program under the IMF. Vows to uphold the rule of law and reduce the cost of living under the new administration. Parliament dissolved. The 9th Parliament of Sri Lanka dissolved. The next general election to be held on the 14th of November 2024. A helping hand. International Monetary Fund's Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva assures continuous assistance to Sri Lanka's new administration. Clash of predictions. No significant shift in Sri Lanka's reform trajectory or policies is expected due to government changes, says Moody's. Fitch, however, rates Sri Lanka's long-term foreign currency issuer default rating at restricted default due to the recent change in administration. Visa to jail. The Controller General of Immigration and Emigration remanded for failing to implement the Supreme Court's interim order on the implementation of the electronic visa issuance process.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක. කොහොමද? ඒනං ස්වදේශී ඔරිජිනල් කොහොඹම තමයි.
This is Ada Derana First at 9 with Ndivari Amuata. From Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a very warm welcome. You're joining us tonight on First at 9 with the very latest from across Sri Lanka and around the world. Let me take you straight to your top story making headlines tonight. President Anura Kumara Dissanayake assures that his government will soon begin discussions with the International Monetary Fund and added that relief will be obtained by concluding negotiations on debt restructuring with the parties involved in a bid to improve the country's economic stability. Addressing the nation a short while ago, the head of state said his government expects to achieve short-term economic stability via the implementation of appropriate measures prior to the implementation of medium and long-term economic plans. President Dissanayake vowed to reduce the burden on the Sri Lankan people and assured that social protection of each and every citizen of the country will be ensured.
We express our gratitude to the people in this country who listened to our voices raised over the decades and supported our program. We strongly believe that the victory we claim will be further strengthened only if people who did not agree to our program too becomes happy. I would like to hand over our victory to the entire population of this country. We possess the ability to rebuild this country. We have a team with talent for that purpose. All of them possess a strong willpower in making this a reality. Before implementing structural changes in the country's various sectors, we believe that it is necessary to uplift the economy to a stable level. Prior to the implementation of medium and long-term economic plans, we expect to achieve short-term economic stability via the immediate implementation of appropriate measures. We have to implement several measures in order to achieve the change we expect. However, it is possible only via economic stability and confidence. In order to do that, we will expedite and carry forward the discussions with the International Monetary Fund with regard to the extended fund facility. With regard to the debt restructuring, we will discuss with the parties involved and conclude the process soon in order to obtain the expected relief. We believe that we will be able to obtain the support of both the international community and the people of this country. We believe that we can emerge victorious due to that collaboration. By helping us to secure power, people expected the change in this country. Changing the features of the existing political system that are detrimental in nature is one such change. Regardless of whether you are Sinhala, Muslim, Tamil, Burgher or Malay, this country will continue to be a failed state until a country where people can live with pride is created. In order to do that, we will not be hesitant in implementing the necessary economic, constitutional and political changes. We will end the era where people are divided based on religion, race and caste. We will launch a sustainable program to build a Sri Lankan community that respects diversity. We have already taken measures to appoint responsible and efficient officials to fulfill these purposes. We will dedicate ourselves to creating a society that respects the law. We will assure the social protection of each and every citizen in this country. We will ensure that each and every citizen is equal before the law. We will dedicate ourselves in creating an efficient and people-friendly state service. We will take steps to reduce the burden on people. We vow to protect the future generations of the country by providing an excellent education. We will assure a better future for our children by introducing programs that enhance their knowledge and entrepreneurial skills. The women, who account for over 52% of the population, provide a massive contribution to the nation. We will take necessary steps to increase women participation in all institutions. We will make sure that people of all social standings are not left behind in our journey. I know that there are people who live in uncertainty. I intend to secure your trust through my actions. I am ready to accept your constructive criticism. I encourage you to be a part of the future that we will create together. Our doors are open to anyone who wishes to honestly and constructively contribute towards the development of this nation.
මේ රට ගොඩනැගීම උදෙසා සාධනීය ලෙස අවංකව සම්බන්ධ වන සියලු දෙනාට අපේ දුරට විවෘතයි.
Horizon Campus 2024 Intake 2. Register now.
චන්දුරුසුමේ කාගෙත් මන අපේ සිග TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්.
The 9th Parliament of Sri Lanka was dissolved with effect from midnight yesterday by order of President Anurakkumara Dissanayake. Accordingly, the general election to elect the next Parliament will be held on the 14th of November this year. The new Parliament will convene for its inaugural session on the 21st of November.
The extraordinary Gazette notification dissolving the 9th Parliament of Sri Lanka with effect from midnight on the 24th of September 2024 was published last night with the signature of the Secretary to the President. The notification stipulates that the general election would be held on the 14th of November this year. Additionally, nominations for the parliamentary election would be accepted from the 4th of October until 12 noon on the 11th of October, while the 10th Parliament is scheduled to convene for the first time on the 21st of November.
පාර්ලිමේන්තු මැතිවරණය සඳහා නාම යෝජනා බාර ගැනීම ඔක්තෝබර් මාස 4 වෙනි දින සිට 11 දින.
Acceptance of nominations for the parliamentary election will take place from the 4th of October until 12 noon on the 11th of October at the district secretariats of the 22 electoral districts. Pursuant to the Regulation of Election Expenditure Act number 3 of 2023, the Election Commission will determine the maximum amount that could be spent on election promotional activities in this election as well. Accordingly, the Election Commission is obligated to gazette the relevant amount within 5 days of the conclusion of the acceptance of nominations. The circular regarding the misappropriation of state assets during the election period will be effective during this election as well. Additional circulars relevant to this election will be published either today or tomorrow.
චක්‍රයක අද හෝ හෙට දිනේ නිකුත් කරනවා.
මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තු මැතිවරණය නිරීක්ෂණය කිරීම සඳහා අපි මේ වෙනකොට
We have already made the necessary preparations for monitoring the parliamentary election, as we were aware that regardless of who becomes president, the election would be called promptly. During a parliamentary election, there is competition among candidates representing the same political group. However, it is the responsibility of political party leaders to prevent such competition from escalating into conflicts. This presidential election was able to create a positive change in this country's election culture. The citizens, political parties, the Election Commission and the police all have a collective responsibility to maintain this positive change during future elections.
The new Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, assumed office last afternoon. And today, the Premier participated in a discussion with officials of the Prime Minister's office, during which she affirmed that her government aims to establish a strong, efficient and populist public service that seeks to restore public trust in the government sector. Meanwhile, after assuming duties as the Minister of Public Security, Vijitha Herath assured that the NPP government will restore public faith in the police department by allowing the people and the police to execute their duties independently without political interference.
Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya arrived at the Ministry of Health last afternoon to assume duties as the Minister of Health after taking oath before President Anurakkumara Dissanayake at the Presidential Secretariat earlier in the morning. The occasion saw the attendance of the Secretary to the Prime Minister Pradeep Saputantri and Secretary to the Health Ministry Dr. Palitha Mahipala.
We hope to make a change in every sector of the country. The NPP highly values the significance of the country's health sector. We have a vision as well as principles to enhance the health sector of the country. As a government, we are committed to working towards achieving that goal.
Subsequently, Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya engaged in a discussion with the officials of the Prime Minister's office this morning.
People have a negative attitude towards the country's public sector. Our goal is to establish a strong, efficient and populist public service in the country. We further aim to restore the dignity of the state services and enhance the trust between the public sector and the people. It is also imperative that the public sector employees have the autonomy to perform their duties without political intervention.
Meanwhile, the National People's Power's Vijitha Herath arrived at the Ministry of Mass Media this morning to assume duties. Vijitha Herath also assumed office at the Ministry of Rural and Urban Development, Housing and Construction in Battaramulla today. Following his appointment as the Minister of Public Security yesterday, Vijitha Herath assumed duties at the Ministry of Public Security today.
From today onwards, I will accept the responsibility of the Ministry of Public Security. The people of this country have given us a mandate. According to the people's mandate, we have a responsibility to affirm the security of the public. We will implement measures to resolve the passport issue as soon as possible. We have already discussed this issue with the relevant officials. Following the discussions, we have been assured that the existing passport queues can be eliminated by mid-October by introducing new passports. During the past, people lost their faith in the Sri Lanka police. We will ensure that the Sri Lanka police is able to execute their duties without any political intervention. This government will not continue the culture which persisted in the country during the past. Appointments and promotions must be granted based on the need of the profession and the administration. No appointments or promotions will be granted for political reasons.
In the meantime, Mahinda Sirivardhana, who was reappointed as the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance, Economic Development, Policy Formulation, Planning and Tourism, resumed his duties today. Deputy Secretaries to the Treasury, heads of department under the Ministry of Finance and other senior officials attended the event.
Discussions were held between the new President and Central Bank Governor, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, and Secretary to the Ministry of Finance, Mahinda Sirivardhana. The current economic situation of the country was discussed at length during the meeting, which was held at the Presidential Secretariat last evening. Additionally, measures to stabilize the economy and several issues affecting the economy were also taken up for discussion. The Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georgieva, has assured Sri Lanka's new President, Anurakkumara Dissanayake, that the global lender remains a steadfast partner. She emphasized that the IMF is ready to assist Sri Lanka in achieving development and reforms goals, including those under the ongoing IMF-supported program. In a letter addressed to the President, the IMF chief expressed confidence that his leadership will help secure a future of stability, prosperity and inclusive growth for Sri Lanka. While expressing eagerness to collaborate with the new administration, Georgieva added that the IMF looks forward to deepening the mutually beneficial relationship between the IMF and Sri Lanka. Also in other appointments, President Anurakkumara Dissanayake appointed new governors to the country's 9 provinces today. The newly appointed governors took oath at the office before the President at the Presidential Secretariat today.
The governor positions of the Northern and Sabaragamu provinces became vacant following the resignation of the previous governors. PSM Charles and Naveen Dissanayake resigned from their positions as the governors of the Northern and Sabaragamu provinces respectively, following Anurakkumara Dissanayake swearing in as the President of Sri Lanka. 9 new provincial governors were appointed by President Anurakkumara Dissanayake today. They were sworn in before the President at the Presidential Secretariat in Colombo this afternoon. Accordingly, Hanif Yusuf has been appointed as the new governor of the Western Province. Professor Sarath Abekon, a former Vice-Chancellor of the University of Peradeniya, was appointed as the new Central Province Governor. Meanwhile, former Senior Administrative Officer Bandula Harishchandra was appointed as the new Governor of the Southern Province. Tissa Kumarasiri Varnasurya has been appointed as the new Northwestern Province Governor. Wasantha Kumara Vimalasiri was sworn in as the new Governor of the North Central Province. Additionally, Nagalingam Sedanayagan has been appointed as the new Governor of the Northern Province. Jayantalal Ratnasekara has been appointed as the Eastern Province Governor. Champa Janaki Rajaratna was sworn in as the new Governor of the Sabaragamu Province. Finally, Kapila Jayasekara was sworn in as the new Governor of the Uva Province.
Well, the international rating agency Moody's has indicated that it does not anticipate any significant shifts in Sri Lanka's reforms trajectory or policies going forward. However, Moody's anticipates the reprioritization of some policies under the new government. The agency further stated that it expects the government's debt affordability to remain weak and anticipates short-term political uncertainty until a new parliament is formed.
Issuing a statement on the recent presidential election in Sri Lanka, Moody's noted that despite a major shift in the political landscape, it believes the broad appetite for reforms will remain intact. The agency does not expect significant disruptions to the country's reform agenda or macroeconomic policies, which include ongoing debt restructuring and structural adjustments under its program with the International Monetary Fund. However, some policies are likely to be reprioritized amid challenges in maintaining fiscal consolidation, which could keep credit risks elevated for some time. The agency reported that reforms implemented since the economic crisis in 2022 have increased revenue to slightly more than 11% of GDP in 2023, up from 8.3% in 2021, and the fiscal deficit has narrowed to 8.3% of GDP in 2023 from 11.7% in 2021. Nevertheless, Moody's expects the government's debt affordability to remain weak, with interest payments likely averaging 40 to 50% of revenue over the next 2 to 3 years. Highlighting the Economic Transformation Act passed in Parliament earlier this year under former President Ranil Wickremesinghe, the agency noted that it obliges future governments to adhere to the current set of economic and fiscal reforms, including meeting fiscal and debt targets established under the IMF program. The Act also requires any government to present to Parliament the steps and measures being taken to achieve specific targets stipulated in the Act by the 31st of March each year in order to maintain reform momentum. Commenting on the program under the International Monetary Fund, Moody's stated that President Dissanayake has not opposed Sri Lanka's debt restructuring deals, and any changes to policy and reform measures will be made in consultation with the IMF. The agency mentioned that negotiations regarding potentially revised targets or changes in specific measures will take time, which could lead to delays in disbursements or the finalization of external debt restructuring with private sector creditors. This process may also be affected by the possibility of early parliamentary elections. Overall, Moody's expects short-term political uncertainty until a new parliament is formed.
Chair of the United States Senate's Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Ben Cardin, stated that Sri Lanka's new president, Anura Dissanayake, and his administration face the urgent risk of addressing the country's economic and social issues. Issuing a statement regarding Sri Lanka's recent presidential election, Senator Cardin noted that millions of Sri Lankans peacefully exercised their democratic right, demonstrating a deep and meaningful commitment to shaping the country's path forward. As the country transitions to a new administration, Senator Cardin emphasized that it must urgently address the devastating man-made economic crisis of 2022 while advancing genuine progress in governance, anti-corruption, human rights and accountability for past injustices. He added that the United States remains committed to supporting the people of Sri Lanka in the pursuit of an inclusive, just, democratic and economically sustainable future. Controller General of Immigration and Emigration Harsha Ilukpitiya was remanded by the Supreme Court on contempt of court charges over his failure to implement the interim order on the implementation of the electronic visa process. The country's apex court issued this order after considering the relevant charge sheets against the Controller General filed by former MPs M.A. Sumanthiran, Rauf Hakim and Champika Ranawaka.
The new visa issuance system by Global Visa Processing Service VFS Global and its charges led to a massive controversy after a local passenger raised his concerns over the process. Further, video of the incident was in widespread circulation on social media. On the 25th of July, then opposition MPs Patali Champika Ranawaka, M.A. Sumanthiran and Rauf Hakim filed 3 petitions before the Supreme Court against the VFS visa procedure introduced at the Katunayaka airport. Several officials, including former Minister of Public Security Derana Alice, Controller General of Immigration and Emigration Harsha Ilukpitiya, have been named as respondents to the case. Speaking in Parliament, former MP Hakim stressed that the VFS visa deal is a scam which is tenfold worse than the central bank bond scam. On the 2nd of August, the Supreme Court issued an interim order suspending the contract awarded to private consortium IVS, GBS and VFS Global to operate the visa issuance. Further, the Controller General of Immigration and Emigration was ordered to adhere to the visa issuance process that existed prior to what was carried out by the foreign firms in question. However, charge sheets were filed before the Supreme Court by former MPs Sumanthiran, Hakim and Champika Ranawaka, citing that the Controller General of Immigration and Emigration has failed to comply with the order of the country's apex court. When the charges were taken up for consideration today, Controller General of Immigration and Emigration Harsha Ilukpitiya, who appeared before the court, said that he is innocent of the charges. However, Justice Achala Vengapuli of the 3-member judge bench stated that no citizen in this country can disregard the orders issued by the country's apex court. Taking the facts presented into consideration, the Supreme Court judge bench ordered the respondent to be remanded under the provisions of the Contempt of Court, Tribunal or Institution Act No. 8 of 2024 until the conclusion of the case. The relevant fundamental rights petitions were ordered to be taken up again on the 22nd of January next year.
In politics, members of the Samagi Janabalawege revealed today that they are considering the United National Party's invitation to form an alliance to contest the upcoming general election. This development came despite the party's leader Sadith Premadasa claiming yesterday that the invitation had been rejected. With that, here's a look at more of the latest political developments.
The management committee of the Samagi Janabalawege convened a special meeting today to discuss preparations for the upcoming general election at the Samagi Jana Sandhane headquarters in Ward Place.
අද දීර්ඝ සාකච්ඡාවක් කරා බොහොම සාර්ථකයි. හෙට අනිද්දා ඔයාලා දකි මේ ඇති වෙලා තියෙන වෙනස.
අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා අලුත් මූණු යම් ප්‍රමාණයකුත් එක්ක හොඳ කණ්ඩායමක් නාමජන සඳහා ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න.
ජාතික පක්ෂයෙන් ඔබතුමාලට විරුද්ධ ආරාධනාවක් කරනවා එන්න අපිත් එක්ක එකතු වෙන්න කියලා සමගි ජනබලවේගය.
ඔව් ඒ ගැනත් අපි සාකච්ඡා කරමින් ඉන්නවා. අපි සියල්ල විවෘතයි.
එජාපය සමගි ජනබලවේගයත් එක්ක යම් සාකච්ඡාවල් නිරත වීගෙන යනවා. ඒක අවසන් වුණාට පස්සේ බලමු මොකද්ද ඒගොල්ලෝ කරන්නේ කියලා. මොකද දැන් එජාපයටත් තේරුම් අරන් තියෙනවා. සමගි ජනබලවේගයත් එක්ක එකතු වෙලා ගියොත් තමයි ඒගොල්ලන්ට යම් දේශපාලන අනාගතයක් තියෙන්නේ කියන එක.
අපි සියලුම පැතිකඩ දිහා බලලා අපි කොහොමද හොඳම ආකාරයට අපේ මැතිවරණ ව්‍යාපාරය ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නේ නාම යෝජනා ඇතුළුව අපි ඒ ගැන වැඩපිළිවෙලක් සකස් කරමින් යනවා.
Meanwhile, representatives of various other political parties expressed their opinions regarding the upcoming general election.
ඔබතුමා ඉදිරිපත් වෙනවද මහ මැතිවරණයට?
ඒක ගැන මම හිතනවා මමගේ හරි තීන්දුවක් නැහැ.
ඔහොට්ටුවට ගිහිල්ලා ආයි සම්බන්ධ වෙලා දේශපාලනය කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ නැද්ද ඔබතුමා?
නෑ අපි කවුරුත් මං හිතන අපි කිසිම කෙනෙක් නැවත මේ පොදු ජන පෙරමුණට යන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ කඩාගෙන වැටුණානේ.
පාක්ෂිකයන් අපිට පොඩි පාඩමක් ඉගෙන.
Our supporters have taught us a valuable lesson. The party leader and our presidential candidate stated that we will learn from our mistakes, reappear before the people and face their judgment. We believe our party has been purified. The SLPP will be the decisive factor in forming the next government.
ඊළඟට හදන ආණ්ඩුවේ තීරණාත්මක සාධක වෙන්නේ.
අනුර කුමාර දිසානායක මැතිතුමාගේ
With the victory of President Anurukumara Dissanayake, all the thugs in the north have been removed and it is now cleaned up. The Maubima Janata Party and Sarva Jana Bale have been formed as an alternative political force. Anyone who wants to create systemic change is welcome to join us.
එකතු වෙලා අපි ඊතන අර සිස්ටම් චේන්ජ් එක කරලා පෙන්නන්න.
Star dishwasher දැලි තෙල් ඉඳුල් පහසුවෙන් සේදේ. Star dishwasher magic tub එක.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Taking you to business affairs, Fitch Ratings has affirmed Sri Lanka's long-term foreign currency issuer default rating at restricted default and the long-term local currency issuer default rating at CCC-. Now, the rating agency in its latest report noted that Sri Lanka's preliminary debt restructuring agreements in principle with members of the steering committee of the ad hoc group of bondholders and the China Development Bank positively influenced the country's ratings. However, the potential delay in finalizing the foreign currency debt restructuring or negotiating with the IMF program due to the recent change in the administration adversely affected the rating. According to the IMF, Sri Lanka's gross general government debt to GDP ratio is only projected to decline from approximately 116% in 2022 to 103% by 2028, which also had a negative impact on the ratings, which highlights that the expansion of the country's foreign reserves to $6 billion by the end of September and an uptick in tourism and overseas worker remittances indicating an expected surplus in current accounts for 2024 as a positive factor affecting the country's ratings. Fitch also anticipates further easing of monetary policy from 2024 to 2026, with the central bank's cumulative reduction of standing deposit facility rate by 725 basis points since June last year, as underlying inflationary pressures remain subdued. Now, the all-share price index reported and recorded its largest daily gains so far this year, with turnover exceeding 3.96 billion rupees today. The benchmark index climbed 2.87%, settling at 11,659.71. Trading volume on the index rose to 150 million shares from 95.9 million in the previous session. The S&P SL20 of more liquid shares climbed 4.09%, ending at 3,867.45. The banking sector was the top contributor to turnover, while the capital goods sector followed. Foreign investors closed as net buyers, purchasing shares worth 2.5 million rupees. And up next, we have Minal Wickremaghe from Capital Alliance with some thoughts on the current status of the economy.
In the financial markets, the weekly average weighted prime lending rate, or the AWPR, for the week ending September 20th increased by 15 basis points to 9.38% compared to the previous week. Meanwhile, the average weighted call money rate, or the AWCMR, remained unchanged at 8.61%, reflecting stability in the short-term market. However, market liquidity has shifted, with the total outstanding market liquidity moving into a deficit of 23.8 billion LKR by September 20th, 2024, compared to a surplus of 38.58 billion LKR at the end of the last week, indicating some tightening in liquidity. On the government finance front, Sri Lanka's outstanding central government debt decreased to 28,563 billion LKR by the end of June 2024, down from 28,695 billion at the end of 2023. Domestic debt accounted for 17,555 billion LKR, while the rupee value of foreign debt stood at 11,000 billion as of June 2024. In the secondary market, Treasury bills and bonds transactions saw a significant decline of 25% compared to the previous week. However, yields in the latest Treasury bill auction remained relatively stable across all tenors.
And that's all the news from us here tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow, same time. Good night.